Good morning, everyone. It's Lee Henson, president and founder of Agile Dad, and it's time for today's episode of the Daily Stand-Up. So without any further ado, let's get started. Today, I wanted to have a conversation with you about something else that I am grateful for. So in this week of gratitude, I am grateful that we can easily now identify Scrum anti-patterns. I've worked on enough Scrum projects and done enough coaching that I can discover some anti-patterns pretty quickly. Today, I hope to cover 10 anti-patterns that I find in Scrum. I know it's a lot, but I'm going to try to go fast and see if we can get them all done in 15 minutes. So let's do this. Coming in at number 10, the oversized product backlog. Here's a fact: garbage in, garbage out. I see all the time where product owners try so hard to make everyone happy that they often dump everything into a product backlog, and it affects transparency. It affects the ability of the team to get everything just right sized. It affects the ability for people to review the backlog frequently, impose objections, or figure out dependencies. It's just a nightmare. So what I'm trying to say is, if your backlog is more than, this sprint plus a few sprints right out, you need to correct that problem. It should never cover more than just a few sprints worth of work. My solution to this, obviously, is to create a product owner backlog where you can keep your whims and ideas and things there and make that your dump station, if you will. But make sure this backlog is right-sized and easily consumable. This is one of the number one pitfalls I see teams face all the time in organizations. Coming in at number 9, misaligned incentives. Sometimes, the incentives of Scrum teams on the one side and stakeholders or individual team members on the other side often contradict each other, right? That's a moral hazard. It ends up being a nightmare. So if the sales department tries to save the quarterly bonus by acquiring new features they hope will bring in new revenue, or they start selling new features before the team's knowledge of, hey, we're going to ask you to do this, then they're setting deadlines for the team and penalties in the process if they don't deliver. It's that product backlog management through the back door that causes those misaligned incentives. So you need to make sure that even on a sales or business side of your organization, that you're strategically aligned with the way that the teams work and the way that people work, because you can't be force feeding things down to a team. This isn't foie gras, right? Coming in at number 8, it's something that we call the developer code fallacy. So the product owner supports creating a shared understanding among all the team members is behind, the why behind the what, how we hope it will work, those kind of things. But the real magic unfolds when the developers look at the customers and see when they use the product and listen to them sharing their everyday problems, what's happening when we talk about support. I think that more often than not, we end up in these silos, and oftentimes they're inherited. And your job is to deliver code and only code, and you're not supposed to talk to the customers, and the customers are only supposed to talk through these channels. And what winds up happening is when you create that separation, the teams don't have that constant flow of communication with the stakeholders, thereby they're losing a lot of the value of what they do. So I think a lot of the time what I do is I'll say teams should spend a certain percentage of their time, or a large percentage of their time, in not just building code, but in communication and creating the right path so that they understand how the customer is using their product or service, whether that's through doing product backlog refinement and meeting frequently with product owners, or through actively participating in reviews and discussions with the key stakeholders. I think that both add value. Coming in at number 7, product owner by proxy. So product owner by proxy means that your product owner doesn't represent a committee. So the product owner themselves is responsible for maximizing value created on behalf of the customer. In many organizations, though, stakeholders are often saying, but I'm the product owner over this, or I'm the product owner over that. And they look at the real product owner role as something tactical that just feels this and turns it into Jira tasks. And oh my goodness, that's when you end up becoming my favorite thing, the feature factory, right? That's where you end up just, do as I say, and you get this system that's designed by people and it's handed down to you and you have no say. So you're just a product owner who's managing Jira and not doing anything. It becomes just this waterfall 2.0 approach where we don't want to change how we're doing product ownership, because we've done it this way for the longest time and had people contribute to our work breakdown structure. So we're going to do it the same way as we did in the past. And the product owner doesn't have a chance to do things. So the product owner just becomes this thimble in the middle that that sorts things in Jira, which is really weird. But I've seen it as an anti-pattern. I've seen it happen in lots of organizations. Coming in at number 6 is the concept of a hardening sprint. Okay, there's no such thing as a hardening sprint in Scrum, period. Let's just get that out of the way, right? I think that sometimes we use this as an excuse to create a low-grade option of what we're trying to do. We start cutting corners, saying it works on my machine, and we never ever get to the point where we're building something that's solid. So I think that the hardening sprint is an excuse to behave poorly, knowing that we'll have some time at the end to fix or correct the things that are poor. I just think that this, once again, results in accumulation of technical debt. It results in you not addressing things in a timely manner. And it results in, it's an excuse. Let's just get it out of the way. It's not a sprint. It's a hardening excuse. It's a 2-week or multiple 2-week excuse for you to behave poorly. And I don't approve. So hardening sprint, out the window. Coming in at number 5, the concept of HIPPO. This is the highest paid person's opinion, right? So a lot of times you'll go into a room and you'll have great ideas about how to do things. And then someone will walk in a room and it's like, what do you think? And no matter what they think, that instantly becomes the right idea. Ouch. I've been in meetings where the highest paid person often says, well, I'm in charge here, or I'm the one who founded this company, or I know what's best, or I've been doing this for 27 years. How in touch are you with the customer if you've been doing it for that long, right? I don't think you need to make decisions by pay grade. Now, I understand in certain instances, in government contracts, military, when you've got officers and things like that in a room, you need to sway them to believe that it's their idea before you can apply this principle. But it's one of these things where sometimes you need to deal with the highest paid person. And I think that it's important for us to make sure we understand it. Just because they're highest paid person doesn't mean they're right. Let's look at all the data, and if we have opinions, we'll figure it out, right? I think that it's important for us to understand that there's always two sides of the coin. There's always two sides of the story. So let's investigate everything before we just make a decision based on who makes the most or who's the highest ranking official. Coming in at number 4 is being dogmatic or dogmatism. I think that sometimes we do things so much by the book that we break the framework. I know that sounds crazy, but if you're completely dogmatic about your approach and you treat Scrum as a methodology and not a framework, and it is a list of things that you need to do, a bulleted list of things that you can do to successfully achieve a goal, you're going to quickly determine that the Scrum Master has no real purpose, that they don't have influence or authority, that they are, as long as the Scrum Guide says it's correct and they're interpreting it correctly, then we're doing correct Agile. It often leads to the Scrum Master wearing multiple hats. It leads to the product owner not just being a product owner. I mean, there are some symptoms that come up right away when you do this. It's just, this approach causes the most friction. It causes the most turnover, and it reaps the fewest benefits. I think that sometimes when you come in and you say, well, Scrum is broken or Agile is broken because you're being completely dogmatic about it, means that you don't understand the flexibility that comes with doing Agile. Agile should be perfectly pragmatic in every way. That sounded very Mary Poppins. Number 3, establishing a no-fail culture. Oh my goodness. Failure breeds innovation. Meg Whitman said that. Failure is an option. Ken Schwaber said that. Fail early, fail often. Jeff Sutherland said that. I think you get where I'm going with this, right? I mean, there is a point where, if it's a matter of life or death, that you probably want to avoid failure if you can. But it doesn't mean that every scenario, no matter what, should be a no-fail culture or a no-fail option. I think in a way that we should get in the habit of celebrating what I call good failure. Because I think good failure is what you learn from. Ask Dyson, the guy who invented the vacuum. He did it several thousand times before he got it right. And each time he failed, he celebrated because he was one step closer to that vacuum working. And I think that we need to have that type of attitude. Some of the best people in the world have rooted themselves on failure. Stephanie Germanotta, aka Lady Gaga, was told her song would never play on the radio. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. I think you get the point, right? There's so many people who failed in big ways and gone on to be the best at what they do. I think that we need to understand that if we're going to innovate and if we're going to get better at what we do, that requires some failure. And as long as the failure is early and not costly, and we learn from the failure and move on, that it's a good thing. It's definitely not a bad thing to fail. And I think that that's a common anti-pattern that needs to be busted right now. Coming in at number 2 is micromanagement. This is the no-brainer of the century, right? If you're trying to solve a complex problem, why would you apply theory that comes from the 1890s, where I'm going to make sure you do it right, and I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do, and you will walk with me to figure this out? Oh my goodness. I think that sometimes people work so hard to protect the organization from the people who work for them that they manage their way into a hole by over managing with complex solutions to simple problems. And I think that even if you look at Taylorism or Taylor's scientific management system, there's lots of things. There's a book, I believe it was by Rosenthal. It's Accounting for Slavery. And it teaches you that you can't micromanage things to death. It was Welch who was known for saying, if we are successful, it's not because of anything I did. I'm not going to micromanage this to death. Let's let the teams do their thing and be successful. And I'll tell you what, he did some pretty powerful, amazing things. So I think it's important for us to turn to those type of leaders to understand what they did to really be successful, and how the leaders can support without micromanaging, because that's a big deal. And finally, coming in without a product vision or goal, right at the top, number 1. I think that while every organization has its challenges, if you don't know where you're going and why you're going there, you might as well just throw in the towel now, right? It's pointless to come up with a list of stuff to build just for the sake of building it. I think it's important for us to understand what value do product backlogs provide, who we're fighting for, what we're fighting for, why we're trying to do it. And I think that once we have our head around those things, it's going to structurally align us in such a way that we can rally around a cause. And I think that's the key here that we're missing the cause behind what we do. So I think that, if we understand that while Agile's complex and it has its complexity, it's important for us to understand that we need to have a clear vision, a clear goal. We need to have clear sprint goals. We need to have clear strategies in order for us to execute. And if you can avoid those 10 anti-patterns, I can promise you success. It's that easy. So instead of telling you the 10 things you should do, I told you the 10 things you should avoid. And I'm grateful that we took the time to make this list, because I feel like if you know the things that you need to avoid, it's going to help you be successful in the future. Keep on being grateful this week. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile. Until next time, do take care.